Okay, we began the last parak, Eizem Mekovish Shel Zevachim. We discussed the locations of Kachik Kedoshim, Kachim Kalim, Ashamois, which are Kachik Kedoshim, the Shlomim, Bechor, Maisa Behema, Pesach. What we didn't describe is the Makom of the Menachos, and we kind of went off and discussed them as Beach. So today we're getting back in the Eizem Mekovish Shel Zevachim, and we discussed the Makom of Menachos. Now, the mincha is kachei kedoshim, fellas. The mincha is kachei kedoshim, and therefore it has to be eaten in the azara. But as opposed to the oila, the chatas, and the asham, which shchita is in the soften of the mizbeach, and we had machlokas what that was. The kodem menachos does not have to be in the tzafin, which is again the kmitza is the equivalent of shchita. The kmitza, the four avoided of the mincha, are equivalent to the four avoidus adam. So the shchita, the kamitza would be the equivalent of shchita. The putting in the kli would be kabbalah. Bringing it over the hagasha would be the halacha, and the burning of it of the kamitza of the kometz would be the surika. So that would be tantamount to the four. So our Mishnah begins. Manachos hoyu nikmatzos b'chol makom. The b'chol makom ba'azara. A mincha can be the kamitza, putting of the hands into the flour. Go ahead and take what's called the kamitza. That's the part that's located within these three figures. Is b'chol makom ba'azara. V'ne'acheles lefnim min hakloyim. And where is it eaten? It's eaten inside the kloyim, meaning it has to be eaten in the azara. It has to be eaten within the azara. That's the chiddush. Again, a kloyim is referring to the mishkan where there were kloyim. The zikrei kahuna, only males could eat it. Sanach Gimel Amid Aleph. Only the males could eat it. Michael, any which way. Liyom v'layla at chatzos, for a day and a night until chatzos. In other words, the only difference between it and regular kachim kalim is the makam of the shchita or the kamitza. That's the only difference. That as opposed to kachim kalim, it's in the north. This can be any place. Okay. Amar Abbalasa, mincha shnikmatza behechel kshera. A mincha that the kamitza took place in the heichel. Now we know based on Mikdash the Azara, and then the Azara led to the Ulam, and the Ulam led to the heichel. And the heichel, you had the shulchan, you had the I put in three, yeah. You had the shulchan, the menorah, and the mezbeach hazav, and in there usually you didn't go ahead and do. Usually any shchita or kamitza would be done in the azara proper. So over here with a big chiddush, that kamitza could be performed in the heichel. Shekein matzinu b'silik bazichin. So we find about the removal of the bazichin. Every Shabbos, before Musaf, the lechem aponim, the kahanim that were coming in and the kahanim going out, would go ahead and share 6 loaves going to one going in, 6 to ones going out. What was the matir of the lechem aponim? Was the burning of the bazichin. There were 2 pots of frankincense that were on the shulchan. They were taken out from the heichel. They were taken out from the heichel and burnt on the mizbeach hachitzin. That was the matir to go ahead and permit the lechem aponim. Just as dam is the matir for the murim to be burnt and the basar to be eaten. Who are then the siluk of what? So the siluk is kind of like the kamitza fellas. The kamitza is the matir for the shirayim of the mincha to be eaten. So too the siluk of the voina is the matir for the lechem aponim, and the siluk is in the heichal. It's so therefore the Gemara's reasons that just like the siluk of the lechem aponim, which is tantamount to the kamitza of the mincha, and the siluk performed in the heichal, if you would go ahead and perform a kamitza in the heichal, it would be kosher. It would be kosher. Master Rabbi Yamia, because you're being a pasuk. State in the pasuk that veisim el aroin. Behavia el bnei Aroy hakanim v'komatz misham malay kumtzai misalta mishamna al kol levoinasa v'hikter hakoyin es askarasa hamizbecha isha reich nichayach laHashem. So we're speaking about a korban mincha, and what are you doing? He's going ahead, and it's brought to the place of the kohanim, and it says v'komatz misham makam sheraglei hazar medes. You bring it from the place where the ragli of the zar stands. So l'chayra, from that, it can't be brought in the heichel because the zar, guys, the zar can only go up to the mizbeach and not beyond. He's not permitted between ulam and the mizbeach. The zar is not permitted. So if you're telling me that the kamitza is performed in that area, obviously it can't be performed in the heichel, which is even farther than the ulam mizbeach, farther west. Then b'seiroi, minayin, another halacha. Minayin, but the kasha from the first one. Minayin shem kamatz b'smoil. How do you know? We know avoid is done with the right hand. How do you know if you do kamitza with the left hand? Sheyachse v'yachmitz b'yamin. Don't say that it's possible once you do it with the left. How do you know if you go ahead right and do it and return it with the right? How do you know it's okay? Talmud loymar misham mimakam shekamatz kvar, from the place that you put it. So we have a kasha from the Reisha. The Reisha is mashma mimakam sham from the Raglei Yisrael, and a zar is not permitted in the what in the heichel. So how could you tell me that kamitz is kosher b'heichel? Ikad the army who moisav lo whom farak. Those say Rabbi Yomi asked the kasha, and Rabbi Yomi answered the kasha. And Ikad the army amalei Rabbi Yaakov le Rabbi Yomi bar tachlifa. Said that's why it can't be Rabbi Akiva, who was a Tana, and Rabbi Yomi was an Amoira. So it says Rabbi Yaakov said to Rabbi Yomi b'tachlifa asvelacha, that he'll explain it. But Yomi bar tachlifa asvelacha le nitzcha elo lahachshir kol azar kula. Really, the heichel is good. You know what's telling me, welcome, Sean? It's teaching me, don't think you'd be limited to the tzafim. Don't think kamitz is only in the north like every other kachei kedashim. Ein achinami, you could do in the halazara, but not to preclude that you can't do it in the heichel. You know, you would think this is the only place you can do it. No, it's not telling me this is the only place you can do it. It's telling me that you could even do it this place, and you're not limited to the north. But certainly you can go to the heichel, as we'll see. As because and I would have thought, since oil is kachei kedashim, umincha kachei kedashim, and a carbon mincha is kachei kedashim, ma oila te'unat safin, af mincha te'unat safin. You'll ask, ma lo oila shekain kolil, it's totally burnt. So mechatas, I'll learn how mincha from chatas, just like chatas is in the north, kamitza of the mincha is in the north. Ma lechatas shekain mechaperes, mashen kein mincha. Al-chayve krisus. Excuse me. Shekei mechaperes al-chayve krisus. Because mincha could be bought. Mincha schoita could be bought. Me'asham. We learn from Asham. Right? You learn from Asham. It's also the north. And it's not chayve krisus. Ma'alo Asham shekei minei damim. It's a dam carbon. Says, okay. So you can't learn from one, but let's put it back in the hopper and learn from all three. Oila chatas yechiach. Chatas Asham Tachiach v'Chazar Adin. It's Kachei Kedashim. It's the north. Afani Avi Minchas. Afani Avi that should be the north. So you'll ask Malakulish came in a domim. So Malakula they all mean a domim. You can't learn from the Sarashava because an Oila Chatas v'Asham are all blood karbonis as opposed to a mincha. So why do I need a pasuk to teach me that? Why would I need a pasuk to teach me that the whole place is kosher? Why would I think you need the north? It's Kodesh Kodashim, but it's different than any other Kodesh Kodashim. So I would say without the pasuk you can do it anywhere. As I read the Gemara, you still need a pasuk to tell me you could do the whole place. In other words, I would have thought you're limited to a place. In other words, the place wouldn't be the north; it would be another place. Again, we're having a pasuk to teach me that every place you can do kamitza in the chalazara. Meaning, without the pasuk, I would say you couldn't. The Gemara is now okay. So, what's the possibility over here? You would need the north like Kachei Kedashim. You would have no place of learning that out from. You can't learn out from Oila, Chatas, and Hashem. They're called Minei Domim, right? You can't learn none of them. Memela, why do I need the pasuk? So now we're coming. The Gemara is going to come now to say. The Gemara is going to come now to say, here's what I would have thought that I need the pasuk to tell me any which place. What would I have thought? El Ritzrich. Sakadei Chamina, Hoyel Ksiv, Ve'gisha El HaMizbeach. The pasuk says, Ve'ivesa es hamincha asher yasem el Hashem, ve'grivu el HaKoyen, ve'gisha El HaMizbeach, and he should touch it up to Mizbeach. Ve'her mimenu becomes so. Okay, so why would I think there's din of Hagasha, fellas, that to the southwest corner of the Mizbeach, right? It says that you would go ahead and touch up. So the Havamina is, it says, Ve'gisha el mizbeach, and that we know that's the southwest. Ve'heir mimenu b'kumtzoi, and you should go ahead and separate it from the kometz. Ma hagosha b'kerem ma'ravish droimis, just like hagosha is performed in the southwest. So kamitza b'kerem ma'ravish droimis. Kemashmolon, the pasuk that no, any place in the Azara. So it's interesting. Initially, we thought it would be north like Kodesh Kedoshim. No, I would have thought Dafka southwest because of Agosha, and therefore, and that stays. The male I needed a pasuk to teach me the Komatz Misham and Makam that any place in the Azara works, and that's the first din of our Mishnah. We have a pasuk to teach me the Komatz Misham and Makam Shiragle Azar. Any they have a pasuk that the mincha works anywhere. That you go ahead and any which way. Continues the Gemara. Meisive. No, excuse me. Continues the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan. Shlomim sheshachtan behecho ksherim. Just as you told me a din of the kmitza of the mincha in the heichel, so too if you would take a shlomim, I guess any other korban as well. Well, maybe not. Only shlomim, because the other ones need the north, and the heichel is not in the north. But shlomim sheshachtan beheichel ksherim. The shlomim is geshachted in the heichel. You would say that what? It's kosher. Shenemar v'shachtu pesach oil moed. It says you should shecht it pesach oil moed. So guys, what's the ikar and what's the tafel? The oil moed or the pesach oil moed or the oil moed itself? I would say the oil moed itself. The pesach just the opening. So the Gemara reasons the following: Lo yehei tafel, the pesach of the oil moed, chomer more chomer mina ikar than the oil moed itself. The mela, if I can shecht it pesach oil moed, certainly I can shecht it what in the oil moed itself. Meisivei, Rabbi Yochanan ben Beseira Omer, minayim shemikifu oivdei kechov mes kol azara. How do you know if the goyim surround the whole azara? Shal kahanim echnasim l'sham v'oich l'sham kodesh kedoshim, that the kahanim could go into the heichal and eat kodesh kedoshim. Again, the azara is open to the elements. There's no cover in the Azara. So if you're surrounded and maybe there's shooting arrows in and it might be dangerous, so you want to eat your Kodesh Kedoshim. So how do I know I can go into the Heichal and be protected by a roof? How do you know you can do that? Tamar Loimar, B'Kodesh HaKadoshim Toichlenu, a special pasuk. V'amai Neima B'Chatzer Oil Moyed Yochluhu. Right? It says that Shri Kodesh Kedoshim in the Chatzer of the Oil Moyed. Why do I need a pasuk to tell me you could eat kodesh kedoshim in the what? In the heichal? Why don't I use the same reasoning that Rabbi Yochanan and Beseira used? Right? Not Rabbi Yochanan and Beseira. The same reasoning that Rabbi Yochanan himself used. Rabbi Yochanan had used the svara. Since shchita is pesach oil mayed, certainly shchita could be in the oil mayed. So now we have a pasuk to teach me. Just like you could eat outside the oil mayed, you could eat inside the oil mayed. Why do I need a pasuk? Just say the same svara, right? That the tafel should not be muhammad and the ikar. So the Gemara is going to make a distinction, guys, between avoida and between eating. Says the Marachi hashta. How can you compare the two? Hashta, hasam avoida. Shchita is serving Hashem. Shchita is part of a carbon. You're serving a Kadosh Baruch Hu. The adam loyve b'makom Rabbi. An adam is doing what in the place of his master. If I'm serving Hashem on a lesser place, of course I can serve Hashem in a more kaddishtika place. Achila dein adam oichel b'makom Rabbi. It's not bakavedik for a person to eat in the place of his Rebbe, of his master, really, right? It's not bakavedik. So you don't say that svara. I can only eat in the azara. I can't eat in the heichel. It's tafel chama. Yeah, it's takamol chama. But achila in itself is not something that you should be doing in front of your master. The melevat, we don't say that svara, and therefore I needed a pasuk to tell me that what the kodesh kadashim tachlenu that you could eat there, because without the svara, without the pasuk, I would say you can't eat there because the svara of tafel chama menika does not apply to achila. It only applies to the service of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, now we turn our attention to the birds. Where do we know there's two birds offering? There's a chatas ha'oif and there's an oila ha'oif. The chatas ha'oif where you cut one of the simanim malika. You go ahead, you do this, and then you push it. Where do you do this? Where is it performed? Chatas ha'oif ha'senasis al keren draimis marabis. Again, very busy place. The southwest, guys. The southwest. If you're facing the mizbeach, that's the first corner on the left side. It's going south to north. It's the first corner on the left side. So al keren draimis marabis on the southwest. Ubechol makam ha'isa kashera. Any place could be done. Bechol makam. The Gemara will explain that. What does that mean? You just tell me it's performed over there, and then you say every place is kosher. This is what this was its place, and ushleisha devarim haisa oisa keren mishameshes milmata ushleisha milmaila. So there were 6 different avodas done in the southwest corner, 3 below and 3 above. Chatas ha'oif was done below. Milmata, this chatas ha'oif was done below. The Hagashois and Hagasha of the Korban Mincha, the Shiorei Adam and the Shirayim. Okay, fellas, we spoke out. I have spoken out, but we'll speak it out again. The Chatas is unique that it's the Korban that's done above the Chut HaSikra. We had Machloikis, those are done on the Keren, on the sides. Okay, but it was done above the Chut HaSikra. The Kohen standing on the Sovev, those little ramps that we discussed yesterday, and he will be standing there and putting the blood on there. That's the chatas behema. Chatas ha'oif is below the chut hasikra. The chatas ha'oif is performed below the chut hasikra. Where exactly was it performed? In the southwest corner, below. It was below in the southwest corner. An additional in the southwest corner. Every mincha you would do hagasha. You would bring the as we're going to see in Menachos, you're going to bring the kli with the kaimitz into it. You're going to bring it towards that side, and also that's where the shirayim. There was holes there in the bottom where you pour the shirayim and it go down to the shisa. Okay, so those are 3 things that perform below. What about the 3 things that are above the chut hasikra that I was used for? Right, umil maila. What was performed above? Nasan, 2 lines from the bottom. Samech Gimel Lamed Aleph. Umil Maila, Nisa Chayayin V'Hamayim. That's counted as 2. The libations of every yayin, there was holes. Guys, we saw. Remember, we made holes, right? They wanted the achila that it shouldn't be on the side now and go down the sides, but it'd be achila, just like the emurim was on the mizbeach proper. So too the shtia, the drinking of the mizbeach should be, and therefore they made holes there. And they would put yayin, and on sukkahs, and they had the nisa hamayim, and the oila sa'oif, and the oila sa'oif is the opposite of the chatas, fellas. The oila behem is below the chut hasikra. The oila sa'oif is above the chut hasikra. The oila sa'oif is above the chut hasikra. And where was that performed? It was performed in the southeast. It was performed in the southeast. However, the oila sa'oif k'shahaya rabba b'mizrach, when there was too much busy in the mizrach, then they would go to the west. So here's your mizbeach, guys. I'm facing you. Here is where they perform the oila sa'oif up there. They go up to Soivev and they perform it over there. But when it was very busy, they performed it over here. When it was very busy, they performed it over here. Now, kol oila mizbeach, oila derech yamin. Everyone who went up to the mizbeach would go up on the right side. Everyone who went up to the mizbeach would go up on the right side. Umukafim, and they would go around the Yordan derech small and come down the left. You go up to the right, and you'd always walk counterclockwise, because if you're facing the mizbeach, guys, call poina shata poina elol yamin. So if you're facing the mizbeach walking, you'd be always walking to your right. So you're going from southeast, northeast, northwest, southwest. You're always going counterclockwise. Chutz mina oila legimel elu, except those who went up for these three. Shalai oilam v'yordan ala akev. You went up on the left and you came down the same way. We'll see this Bez Hashem in the Gemara. Let's see Rashi for a second. My kifin derech small, my kifin es mizbech b'shvil tzorchi avoida. Oil lamatan dami chatas, either to put the carbon at the butt of the chatas, I see the hamaracha, or Rashi's explaining why would you have to go up in the mizbech, fellas. What are the type of avoidus you have to do that you go up on the mizbech to the right? So the first thing he brings is the chatas, because that's above the chatas sikra. I see the hamaracha, or setting up the pyre. I hipachevarim, turning over the limbs that they should burn properly. Bitsinoira, with a type of vessel. The Yordin b'marav shel kevesh, and they would come down on the western side of the kevesh. Shehu smile, which is the left. La'olam b'mizrach v'liyasan. So again, they would go down. This is the mizrach, this is the west, and they would go up, around, and down. That's the way they work, with the exception of these three things. That was done in the southwest. Nisachim ba'olas ha'oif, k'sha'olam mizbeach, pointless small, ba'osa karen. You turn right away, u'shenigmar, and when you complete it, chayzer ala akev, you go literally back on your heels. Derech aliyasa, the same way you went up. It doesn't mean you walk backwards, fellas. It just means the same. You go up the same way that you walked up there with your heels, you're going to turn around and go down that way. Uv'gemar meparech habein derech yimin, u'legim avar menasim bal lematan eina oila veina makif. So he's asking a question, what about the ones that are formed below? So that you were in oil. There was only shadows when you're oily in, but the other three that are below, there's no reason that you have to, guys, there's no reason to go up, come down, and stay over there. Once it's on the ground, you just go over there. The chiddush is over here, you're going up and going that way, and the Gemara will discuss why. How do you know that the Chatas Ha'oif is in the west? Minani Mili, how do you know that the Chatas Ha'oif is performed in the southwest? Rav Yehuda Amakra, Lo Yasim Allah Shemen, Lo Yiten Allah Levaina. So, under discussion, guys, is the Minchas Chayta. We know that there are certain Averis, Tumas Mikdash Kadashav, Shuas Bitoy, Shuas Eidis. These are that, depending on your financial status, you're going to bring a carbon. If you're wealthy, you bring a sheep. If you're not so wealthy, you bring two birds. And if you're really poor, you'd bring what's known as a minchas chayta. You bring the minchas chayta. Now, what does it say? Here's the whole pasuk. You can't afford the birds. A tenth of an ephah, soiles, lechatas. Here's what we need. So this is a carbon mincha, and you're calling it a chatas, right? This is a carbon mincha, and you're calling it a chatas, right? It's a carbon mincha, and you're calling it a chatas. Now, chatas kruya mincha, umincha kruya chatas. It's synonymous. You call a chatas a mincha, you call a minchas a chatas. Ma chatas tu'unat safain, just like the chatas needs north, af mincha tu'unat safain, so too the mincha needs north. We're going to get back to this, guys. It doesn't make sense. You just told me that what? That a mincha is knitzis b'chol makam. Now you're telling me it's the north? Hang on. Uma mincha, this is what we need. Uma mincha b'keren ma'rabis droimis, af chatas b'keren ma'rabis droimis. Umincha gufa minol, on that it's in the southwest. The Tanya, it says Lifnei Hashem. On one hand, it says Lifnei Hashem. If it's Lifnei Hashem, guys, Yachol b'mayriv, I might think what? It's Lifnei Hashem is the west. Tamaloma el Pnei HaMizbeach. It says the Pnei HaMizbeach. So, guys, look at me. Here's the Mizbeach. Here's the Mizbeach, and this is north, and this is south. This is west. So it says Lifnei Hashem, I would say it's over here because the oil made is over here. If it says Al Pnei Mizbeach, so I would say it's in the south because the south is the face of the Mizbeach, right? Going up the ramp, that's the face of the Mizbeach. Remember, fellas, the Yerech HaMizbeach is in the north. Remember, that's where the feet are, and the person's lying down, right? So the Pnei is really what? In the south. So you have a problem over here. One hand you need south, on the other hand you need west. How do you work that out? On one hand it says Pnei Mizbeach, and the other says Pnei Hashem. So I al Pnei Mizbeach Yochel B'Dorim. So I might think, what? That's the south. Talmud Lo Milifnei Hashem. Haketzad Magisha B'Keren Ma'Rovish T'Roimis Kineged Chuda Shel Keren V'Dayoi. So in other words, if you go ahead and you get this corner, this back corner, you're getting both. It's like Shteim Shein Arba, right, guys? When you go to you get the south, you're going to get the west. That's what you do it. That's how I know southwest. That's how I know southwest. Okay. Rabbi Lozo Omer Yochel Yagishena L'Ma'ariv Shel Keren. You could go ahead either the west, or L'Droima Shel Keren, or the south. Amit Kol Mokum Shat Moitze Shnei Mikrois Echad Mekayim Atzmoi uMekayim Chaveiroi. If you have two psukim, one can be Mekayim itself and its friend. The Echad Mekayim Atzmoi uMevatel Chaveiroi. And one can Mekayim itself and nullify his friends. Manichem, you leave Zeshem Mekayim Atzmo, the one that wad is Mekayim itself. Umevatel Chaveiroi b'Toivsin, and you go in the direction as Shemekayim Atzmo Mekayim Chaveiroi. Therefore, Kisha'ata Omer al Pnei Hashem b'Ma'ariv. If it says Pnei Hashem, you're in the Ma'ariv. Heichi Kamaisa el Pnei Mizbeach. How do you go ahead and fulfill Pnei Mizbeach? Kisha'ata Omer al Pnei Mizbeach b'Dorim Kaimei b'Pnei Hashem. Right, but Kshat Omer al Pnei Mizbeach b'Dorim Kayamis. Right, b'Pnei Hashem b'Dorim Heichen Kayamis. Okay, so he's saying you could be Mekayim it in the south. Now, how is it possible to Mekayim it in the south? Guys, if this is in the south, or even if it's halfway, this is the face of the Mizbeach is over here. So this Manda Omer is holding, if you're in the south, you're Yotze both. You know that? If the Mizbeach's in the north. Guys, picture. Mizbeach is totally in the north. So if Mizbeach is totally in the north, right, let's say, yeah, this is totally switching directions now. This Mizbeach is totally in the north, right? And here is the oil moed. This is west. So if you're here in the south, guys, you're in the Pnei Mizbeach, and you have L'fnei Hashem. If it's over here, then you don't have L'fnei Hashem. If you go to the south, if you switch it totally over here, and it's in this, so you don't need southwest according to Zman Yomar. You be Yotze with south, because the Mizbeach totally in the north. By the south, you're facing the Mizbeach, right? That's L'fnei Hashem, and you also Pnei Mizbeach. Now, the one thing that we didn't touch upon was that comparison that just like Chatas is in the north, so too Mincha is in the north, and it makes no sense. So if you look at Rashi, where it says Gemara, go down about 8 lines. It says Ma Chatas Tu'unan Tzafin. Chatas needs Tzafin. Says Rashi, Yedeya Ani Shegirsazu Shibush. I know this girsa is corrupt. I know it's not right. Shari loy Chatas Oif loy Minchas Toyin Tzafin. Neither does the Chatas Oif or the Minchas Oif need north. Maybe you'll think a mincha schayta does need north because it's different than a regular mincha. Well, the chatas behema makashla, then havili lemisli b'masni sandiktani leel haminachas nikmatzas b'chol makom b'azara chutz mincha schayta. In other words, guys, a regular mincha is an adava. A mincha schayta is a chatas. So I'd say the following. When the Gemara says that chatzis needs north, mincha needs north, it's not every mincha that needs north. It means the minchas of a chayta needs north. Because the minchas of a chayta is a chatas. So on that Rashi says, then the Mishnah should have said it. What did our Mishnah say, guys? Look back to Yom Aleph. Mincha hoya nikmetzes b'chol makom b'azara. The mincha was nikmetzes b'chol makom b'azara. It should have said, chutz mi minchas chayta. It should have said, because that's an exception, but it didn't. So when it didn't say that, it's not an exception. It's therefore can't be in the north. Continues Rashi. V'oid, heich efshe chatas oiv sheba tachas chatas behema ena tunat sofin, shori nasas b'ker my rosh draimis. Or minchas sheba tachas oiv hatoyin sofin. In other words, the chatas oiv, guys, fellas, if you're rich, you're bringing a sheep. Where are you bringing it? The north. If you're not rich, what are you bringing? 2 birds. One of them is the chatas oif. Where you bring it? Southwest. So therefore, and if you're really poor, then you're going to bring a flower. You're going back to the north. You're not going back to the north. You stay in the southwest, right? So Memela, it makes no sense. V'girsa achrina garsina bo, ve'eni yedeya amita. Says Rashi, I don't know the truth. Guys, fascinating Rashi. I don't know the truth. Jesus, guys, every time Rashi says, what's the inference? Every time Rashi says something, that's the truth. You hear this? V'nir be'enai, ma chatas psula shloi lishma, af mincha psula shloi lishma. Maybe, v'nir be'enai. So going back to the Gemara, Rashi would say the following. He would say, three lines down. Aminan Emilia Mishua Makra, La Yasam La Hashem, Leitin La Lavaina, Kika Chatasi. Chatas Kriya Minchas, Minchas Kohen Chatas. Ma Chatas, Pasal Shalai Lishma, Af Minchel Pasal Shalai Lishma. That, you would change that gersa. Okay. Everyone should have a great day.